Good evening, and welcome to the final installment of the My HBCU Voter Series, powered by Historically Black Sense. I'm your host, Kevin Keys III, and tonight we're coming to you from the Queen City, Charlotte, North Carolina. We've traveled the country engaging HBCU students and alumni in conversations about the power of voting, the legacy of the black political thought, and the critical issues facing our democracy. And tonight, we're focusing on the future. The topic for our final episode is the future of our democracy, mobilizing the next generation. As we look ahead, the question we must ask ourselves is simple. How can we ensure that the next generation of leaders, activists, and voters are equipped to protect and strengthen our democracy? Young people, especially HBCU students, are central to this answer. The future of this country depends on how effectively we can mobilize the next generation to be informed, engaged, and active participants in the democratic process. Vice President Kamala Harris, the first black woman and HBCU graduate to serve as vice president, often speaks about how her time at Howard University shaped her journey into politics. At Howard, she was deeply involved in student activism and used her voice to advocate for civil rights, justice, and the empowerment of her community. Harris has said that Howard not only gave her an education, but a purpose to fight for equity, fairness, and representation. HBCUs like Howard University and campuses here and around the world have a long history of producing leaders who challenge the status quo and push the boundaries of what's possible. From Harris' time as a student activist to her rise to one of the highest offices in the land, her story is a testament to the power of young people who refuse to sit on the sidelines. This shows us that when young voices are mobilized, they can shake the very foundation of democracy and rebuild it stronger. To help us tackle these questions, we are joined by an incredible panel of young leaders who are already making an impact in their communities. So let them introduce themselves.
My name has yet to touch rooms that I've stepped in. Greetings and most humble salutations. My name is Cameron Charles Sanders, an honored senior business marketing scholar from Fort Worth, Texas, and I currently serve as the 14th Mister at Charlotte's only HBCU and the birthplace of HBCU football, Johnson Crane Smith University. And she is
The Pioneer Queen, making history at 100 Betties for a road where we unlock potential and graciously struck gold, holding high the golden blue, representing the Queen City's only HBCU. I am Jessica Nicole McDonald. I humbly serve as the 98th Miss Johnson Crane Smith University.
Good evening. My name is Shakoya Brown, and I am the instructor of rhetoric and communication at the illustrious Johnson C. Smith University. I am also a 2020 graduate of my illustrious HBCU, that is JCSU, and I currently serve as the professor for PR and public speaking, if you didn't know.
Greetings to each and every one of you. I am Stephen B. Sullivan III, a senior at Johnson C. Smith University, and I currently serve as the president for the MPHC and also head student minister at Johnson C. Smith.
Hello, my name is Isaiah Weathers. I am a sophomore majoring in communication arts. I am a fall 2024 initiate into the Beta Theta chapter of Iota Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated.
Thank you all for being here with us today. It's truly appreciated. Let's dive into our discussion on the future of our democracy and how we can effectively mobilize the next generation of voters and leaders. Many young voters, especially those from marginalized communities, are disenfranchised by systems that make it difficult for them to participate. Vice President Kamala Harris has spoken about the importance of protecting voting rights for all, particularly for the youth and communities of color. How can we ensure that young people have the resources and support that they need to engage in the political process?
I'd like to take this question first. Cameron Sanders again. I personally feel like allowing students to understand the right to vote. And not when it comes down to really close elections like this, but electing and really voting on the lower levels, for governors, mayors, and really getting them involved in that process to understand that those people are critical in making the changes that they see in their communities, whether it's, placing street lights, maybe fixing drainage issues, things that really occur in what they see versus when it gets to that higher level that we're talking about for the presidential election. So really encouraging students to really focus on what's around them and their surroundings first, and then building up to be like, okay, we have this coming up in a few years. This is who we will see, who will elect these other people into these other offices. So
I think for me, my biggest thing is always making sure that students and people of all ages understand how to be an advocate for the things that affect you and the ones that you love. So exposing students at a very young age to the democratic process and what it means to be an advocate through community service or through different learning activities in school is so important, because a lot of times they need to see it on a personal level before they make it to 18 and they're able to vote. So making sure that students understand, like, hey, you see your parents engage in the democratic process by voting? Okay, nice. And like, do you hear them talk about these things at home? Or even for high schoolers, they are, a little older, so they can understand a little bit more about things like school board elections, or talking about different education policies, talking about things, even when it comes down to parks and recreational centers, helping especially the younger students, understand that voting isn't just something that you do every 4 years for your president, like you were saying, Cameron, but that it is an entire lifelong process that can change our way of life on a day-to-day basis.
Young people face numerous barriers when it comes to political engagement, from voter suppression to misinformation. What do you think are the biggest challenges young voters face today, and how can we overcome them?
Okay, so I think one of the biggest challenges that young people face today is not understanding their power in their vote. I don't know how many times I will hear students say, like, well, my vote doesn't matter. And that's the biggest misconception. So just truly making them understand the importance of voting, the fact that there are individuals trying to take our right to vote. So that shows you that if it was not important, if it did not matter, there would not be individuals and systems in place to take our rights away. So just understanding the importance and just advocating for one another and making sure that, okay, yes, I voted. Did my fellow classmate vote? Has my suite mate vote? Just pushing the narrative to making sure that everyone votes and understanding their power in their vote.
thank you, Jess. I'd like to add too. I feel like it boils down to what you see as you grow up. And if you don't have a family history or friend history of people voting and really taking action, then it's not going to be something that you're inclined to do when that time comes. And it's just basic habit. It's not something you see is foreign to you, so it feels like it doesn't matter. It feels like your vote or your voice doesn't matter because we're also told at these polls, or we're even told that we don't deserve to vote. We have a history of that, so it's really changing that narrative around seeing it and making sure that you implement it for generations to come.
Can you repeat the question one more time? I want to make sure that I answer it correct. I want to make sure I answer it right.
What do you think are the biggest challenges young voters face today, and how can we overcome them?
One of the biggest challenges that young voters we face today is not getting out there to understand. Because what I mean by that is we're missing the principle of who am I voting for, and what is their platform. For a prime example, when Smith do their student elections every year, I go up, especially to the freshmen, I always ask them, what is your platform? What are you running on? Why do you want this position? Because anybody can have a title, but can you do the work that comes behind it? Are you going to be the one that stand there and stand for what is right? Are you going to be the one making the change or being in the change to help endure the change? So that's the part that we're missing. So we're missing trying to get out to understand what this voting process is or who is running for it. But the thing that we can change or to make it better in a sense is to make sure that we come together, because we have to come together as a unit to understand what is happening in our society today. Because not only are we voting for the national, which is the president now, but you're also voting for your state and your locals. And that's the principle that we're missing, because not only does everything has to go from the state, but it still goes back to the White House and stuff, and we're missing that in this sort. So I say the change that can be made is coming together and to help the people that don't understand. Because I can sit and talk to you, or some may say preach to you all day, but you have to understand what does this really mean, and ask questions so you can understand what you're supposed to be voting for.
And I'll add to that, and I'll wrap up here. One of the biggest barriers for us in this day and age is social media and the ready, like, just the access that we have to opinions and so many different outlooks. And those things are great, but I think one of the things that I really try to drive my students to do is do your own research. So understanding that research goes far beyond, let me get on here and see, like, okay, this is what they said in the debate last night. Get out there in the streets and do the research too. So when you are doing local elections, when you have people coming to your city, coming to your town, coming to your university, get there a little early and be that person that talks to their team. Get there a little early and be that person that talks to other people that are around. Try to learn, engage, and figure out what's going on. And a lot of times, especially for local elections, you can directly speak to the person running. And I think we shy away from doing things like that because in our minds, political people are up here when it's not really like that. You want to be able to reach your politicians and understand their platforms. And you want to be able to understand what is it that got you here? What's your why? And then when you understand their why, understanding, well, how does their why affect my why? So doing the research for yourself, and not just by Google, but putting yourself physically in the research can do a lot for your vote.
Also, when we spoke about challenges, just voters' rights. A lot of young people, especially students, don't know their rights. And even I'll speak on yesterday. JCSU, we did a stroll to the polls, and there was some misconception with some of the students not knowing that they could use their school ID as a form of identification to vote. So once they figured that out, more people came. So it's just little things like that, like knowing the information, knowing your rights as a voter, and knowing the knowledge so that someone can't take it from you and say, like, oh, you don't have your state issued ID, you can't vote. Well, that's not true. I know my rights as a voter.
I will just say the first thing that you said was the fact that people say that their vote is not important. If their vote wasn't important, people wouldn't be setting ballot boxes on fire. I mean, that's just simple as that. I mean, it's in 3 different states just yesterday. 3 different ballot boxes was set on fire, destroying thousands of votes. So when we talk about our vote not mattering, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. HBCUs have long been the center of activism, and today's students are carrying on that tradition. Just as Howard University shaped Kamala Harris' political journey, how do HBCUs continue to create an environment where students are informed and are engaged voters?
So, ironically enough, I just started a research project this summer on HBCU activism in North Carolina. So for many of you who don't know, North Carolina has a plethora of historically black colleges and universities. And for many of our campuses, social activism has been a big concern for the students. So you have, incidents where students are sitting at lunch counters because they want to integrate spaces that are public. You have instances where students are marching from their campus to the city hall, marching from their campus in the streets to advocate for the different things that they have going on. And I think that HBCUs are the perfect place to talk about the issues that matter to us as marginalized communities, but also when you know your history, you know your worth. So knowing the history of activism that has happened before you helps you understand how you can still come together and mobilize today. And I think that, yes, we talk and we focus heavily on voting, but what about after that? After the vote, what do you do? Leading up to the vote, what do you do? And oftentimes we have conversations about the things that we need to do to be informed about voting, but many times we don't put people in the physical people and voices in the place so that we can start the conversation to help people understand. Because you can say that, students don't know that they can vote with their student ID. But to someone who says, I don't care about voting anyway, that means nothing. But then maybe you bring up the fact that, like, hey, did you know that on the ballot this year, they are trying to change the language surrounding who is considered a eligible voter? That might spark someone's interest. Or even talking to someone about disenfranchisement, or how do people who were formerly incarcerated, how do they come and re-enter society and then gain their rights back to vote? There are so many different issues, and I encourage everyone, whether you're on an HBCU campus or not, to take the time out and figure out, what could a policy do to my university? What could a policy do to me as a student, especially if you're in a state that you are not originally a citizen in? And then start to piece together some different ideas on what kind of events you can do throughout the school year. What can you do throughout the summer? Don't just make a voting year the time where you have events. Make your experience as an HBCU student a time to be an advocate and a time for you to spark that change, because it matters beyond your 4 years.
HBCUs have always played a pivotal role in shaping political thought and mobilizing communities. How do you think HBCUs can continue to be a driving force in mobilizing young voters for future elections? HBCUs have always played a pivotal role in shaping political thought and mobilizing communities. How do you think HBCUs can continue to be a driving force in mobilizing young voters for future elections?
When you think of the term mobilizing, or the word mobilizing, you think of moving. So in other words, if you restate the question, you're asking, how can an HBCU or all of the institutions help the community or help the institution keep moving? How can voting help keep the process moving? So, and what is funny, because I just thought about this, there's a student on the campus, and she's only 17. So she cannot vote for this election. So, but what is she doing is she's empowering others to do it. Because right now, as we say, the voice is in the power of the vote. She can't do that, but she has her peers and others around her who can help make her voice be known. So even at a young age, no matter what it is, still understand. So what it and to go back to the question, it acts as mobilizing. So how can the universities help keep us going is to help understand. So this is what I really like about HBCU, especially in our political science majors, because one of my brothers is actually a political science major, and to hear him think and to hear him talk, it helps you understand what is happening next. What can I be thinking about different? How can I put this in a perspective for the next generation to come? Because right now, we're in the phase of the generation that's behind us. What are we leaving behind? Do we want to go back to what our foremothers and fathers fought for? Or do we want to keep it at a place where we can keep growing? Do we want to go back to the past, or do we want to keep going to the future? Because right now, in the words of Whitney Houston, I believe the children are our future, and that is so true. They are the future, because especially the ones who have younger kids who's either in, mind you, I have a niece who's in elementary, and others who may have pre-K, high school, middle school. You have to understand, what is my children or my next generation coming into? So how can I help keep them moving? How can I help the university? Because it's not always up to the university to help keep it moving. It's the people. It's the students. It's the alums. is people in the even the people who want to donate. We are the community of the university, so we can come together and to help create this portion, create this bond to where we can understand voting. We can move in a different direction. So I think that would be a great process to just more come together to help keep it moving.
I'm gonna restate the question. How can young people? That's not the right question. How do you think HBCUs can continue to be a driving force in mobilizing young voters for future elections?
I guess for me to answer that question, it's really kind of a call and response. What's the call and response from our community? Knowing that HBCUs are around more lesser developed areas, and these are people who had to fight, continuously fight for what it is that we have now. And knowing that we're in a pivotal spot to really change what our fight is and what it is that we're asking for and what we can really establish on a university, whether it's funding, whether it's civic engagement, whether it's whatever the university needs. And that all boils down to what the student needs. And I feel like that if we understand, like Mr. Koya said before, what voting was, what it did, how it has transformed, and this is probably the biggest election of our lives. So what is it that we're being asked for right now? And it boils down to who's on the ballot and what it is that they're really trying to propel forward. Do we want to go back or do we want to go forward? And just really understanding what that looks like for HBCU students, whether you identify as, Black, white, Latina, whatever it is that you identify, what does that look like for your university as you progress through your university and as you become an alum? What is it that you want to, what legacy do you want to leave, but how do you want to leave your university and the community that you have left from? So that's what I would say.
So, you recently just spoke on the fact that social media was a good and a bad thing. Digital tools have revolutionized how we organize and mobilize. Social media has become a key platform for young activists to spread their message. But it's also a battleground for misinformation. How can we use these platforms effectively?
So we have to have some level of individual responsibility when it comes down to using social media as a tool for voting, for elections, for campaigns. Being that I teach public relations, I can tell you that a lot of times you see PR stunts happening, or you see certain campaigns being pushed for publicity that may not necessarily be all accurate. And so in the digital age, we have to be cognizant of the fact that misinformation can be spread like wildfire, because social media does give us access to millions of people at one time. And so when we think about individual use, are you being responsible for you and your community by posting things that are accurate? Are you being responsible for you and your community that are by posting things that are timely? Are you holding other people responsible? Right? So one of the things that I have noticed in my 26 years of living is that they will always recruit young people to organize, meaning that they're going to always come to campus and say, would you like to be a part of our group? We're going to get people registered to vote. We're going to go out. We're going to have events on campus. We're going to knock doors. We're going to, do what we can to mobilize people to come and vote, right? When you are interning or working with these organizations, ask the critical questions. Don't be afraid to say, okay, so, how are we truly going to reach those people that don't want to answer their door? How are we going to reach those students that are 17? How are we going to reach those students that say, I'm sending an absentee ballot? And learn how to organize in a way that is inclusive of many different types of people, as opposed to just the ones that are going to automatically come to the table and say, hey, Isaiah, I know you, so I'm going to make sure that I get this ballot filled out and vote because you my dog. Hey, Cam, I know you, so I'm gonna make sure that I, sign off on this, but I'm not paying too much attention to it. How do we do that? So I think we need to go from having the conversation surrounding what do we do to get as many people into work and start figuring out what that work looks like. Because a lot of times the work usually starts to get done 5 months before the election, and the election is now. Election day isn't the election. The election is happening now. The numbers are being crunched now. The ballots are being burned now. So what do we do to ensure that our community that's directly attached to us is in good hands and that everyone is being responsible? So I say all of that to say that social media can be used for good when it comes to getting the information out to the masses, but we should start being critical in the things that we post and start being critical in the questions that we ask and start being critical in the people that are trying to get us to mobilize, because I don't want to just see a 4-letter word on an Instagram post that says go vote. I want to see what is the platform, what are the issues on the ballot, what is the language that they're trying to change. Those will make a huge difference in how people conceptualize democracy.
So I like to say, when it comes to misinformation, a prime example of that would be Blockbuster. I'm not sure if y'all seen that on social media recently, but they said it was going to close October 31st, but that got squashed into saying like, oh, we're staying. So I really think that's where we need to research things our own selves and have a better understanding of like, okay, so if they're saying this is happening, okay, let me look on this let me look at this article, or look over here to see if they're saying the same thing. I take media writing class with Professor Gray, and he tells us a lot about misinformation and false news articles. And you have to read about it. He said, if you see one article, it's false. And I stand by that a lot. And last summer, I was trying to understand more about the information that everybody kept saying about the election, and I was like, let me research myself to see what's going on, and there I got my information.
Another reason why we need to be careful when it comes to social media is these politicians know that students are going to go to social media to do their research. And social media oftentimes could be used as a distraction from the actual facts, from the issues that are really going on. So we as students and young people, we have to be careful about what we're internalizing. Just because you see it on social media, that does not mean that it's real. And it could honestly just be a distraction to keep you away from the actual issues and the facts that are going on.
It's real. I will say, me personally, when this is a very loaded question, and I definitely wanted to take the time to answer it myself, especially because when I ran my first campaign for state representative, and even the campaign that I'm running for now, I used social media more because I knew that was like where my voters was going to come from. That was where my reach was going to go. Like, if I just put ads on Hulu or Netflix or any type of streaming platform, that is where people are going to see the most. People are sitting around. People ain't answering doors no more. They think we the Jehovah's Witness, and then they sit there and they close the door. Like, they don't do that no more. So it's like, it's hard to try to say, because people don't want one-on-one interaction. But it's easier to spread a lie online and get it around to everybody, and that is the downside. We watched a lie from 2020 destroy an entire woman's career by simply saying, oh, she put thousands of black men away. It created so much mistrust within, especially black male voters, because they was told she's known to put people away. And the whole time it was nothing but misinformation that was spread. So we see that it's a constant when you spread misinformation. It takes a minute to try to clear it up, especially when people just take it and they run with it, because everybody want to post, because they want to go for the hottest thing out. We also got to stop getting our information on the Shade Room. That Shade Room is not a credible source. Like, they gonna go find the first thing that's hot. Then the next thing you know, you running with that, and then 5 minutes later, they sitting there talking about, oh, we bad, we sorry, we posted the wrong thing. Now you are out here just look aiding to spreading misinformation. So yes, yes.
In the same breath, I do want us to think about when you work for political campaigns and you work on the team, how do we as Gen Z and younger millennials get the politicians who are usually millennial or even older, how do we get them to understand that we can't just put the pretty stuff on social media? Sometimes you got to get in there and answer the tough questions. And I think that our generation is really pushing. Like we're like right there at the door, getting ready to bang on it. Like, hey, I want you to address that. Like when they were saying she locked up all these people. Okay, the people on the team need to come out and say how many. When you start to see misinformation, because research is a loaded thing, right? Like we throw research around like it's a willy-nilly word, when in reality, like research on credible sources is one thing, but if you don't have the time or the regimen to do that, how else can we get to these people? When we're on the teams, we have a responsibility to say, hey, I'm not going to lie. This is what the streets are saying on Twitter. This is what the streets are saying on Instagram. We got to address this now. Put the fire out now. So, yeah, I think that'll be a good way, too, for us as a generation to come together and say, let's start answering the tough questions that people are wondering about and what the buzz is about, so that we can get on the shade room and say, hey, you put that article out yesterday. Let me go ahead and address that and correct you.
That's really real. And you spoke on some of the important issues and raising awareness. And in today's digital age, social media has become a powerful tool for political organizing and mobilization. But how can young people use social media and digital platforms to increase the voters' turnout and raise awareness about the important issues? And let's say effectively. How can they do that effectively?
I say by planning. Everything that we do involves planning and scheduling everything. So when it comes to social media and having to talk about political topics, it's important to encourage people to, like Miss JCSU said, to vote, and that's what's really important, and just to plan everything.
I'm gonna repeat the question. In today's digital age, social media has become a powerful tool for political organizing and mobilization. How can young people use social media and digital platforms to increase voters' turnout and raise awareness about important issues?
Okay, I got you now. So, a lot of these universities will have different programs such as NAACP or just things like Common Cause. And these are programs where students are really getting hands-on experience with voter registration, just voting hands-on, really. And I feel like once you really prioritize and really show what these organizations are doing, and you can see firsthand how they're affecting people's lives and how in turn it is some form of service. And that's really what we all should be aiming for, some form of service, whether it's minimal, whether it's at the highest level, and seeing that this person is involved and they're doing it for a cause. And if this is someone that you really care about, you should care about their cause as well. And I think we're looking at it as a black and white type of thing when it should be a more interpersonal thing. Like Steven said, getting together. Like, if I see my mom is going hard for something, this one birthed me. I should be having the same type of energy, regardless of if it has that same connection towards me, just because this is someone that I love and this is what they love, you know. And when we look at it as, oh, I'm on this side, they're on this side, it's like this isn't sports. Like, this is really something that's going to change my livelihood. And using social media in the form of fashion of promoting what these people want and these agendas that they're pushing, I mean, you can't just be looking at it at face value because it's much deeper than that. But maybe you can look into the analytics of maybe, okay, this post is getting these insights. This story post got this. Okay, so now we're reaching this target audience. I see you watch my story. Are you out here voting? Are you out here helping campaign? Okay, no. You can really see Instagram. You can see who's watching your story, and now you got to take it to another level to see. Okay, are you out here doing what I'm doing, and why not? And what is your take on this? Really sparking conversation from the people who see what you're doing. Because a lot of people are going to watch, but they're not going to say anything. So now you have to take it that step further to really start that conversation. So that's what I would say.
To add on to it, and Cam, thank you because you nailed it right on the head of what I was about to say. People watch the story, but there's one kind of effect that all social medias have is that live button. You can go live. If you can go live for a party, go live for hanging out with your friends, go live to do whatever you may do in life. You can go live for at least 5 minutes, and as a younger person, they will hear you because we're in the time and the generation now where the older, as we say, seasoned saints, they always say, you wouldn't listen to us, even though they've been through it, but our generation wouldn't listen to them. So why not sit there on live and give them information that could be valuable? The same way he just said, you're looking at my story. Instagram will tell you who in there. Facebook definitely tell you who watching. Then you got YouTube and TikTok and all this other stuff that's been going on social media. You have these platforms, but we're not using them for the right things or the necessary things that we need to be using for. We always want to use them for everything else, but when it comes to times like this, when it impacts the world, it impacts your nation, impacts your city, impacts your life, you don't want to post nothing. And the reason why I say a video or a live would be more better is like, because most of the time, okay, prime example, I go on Facebook, it's a picture, but then if it's like a sentence, then okay, I'm gonna read it. But if it's like a whole life paragraph, nobody's gonna read it. They're gonna like the post, see if everybody else like, love, ha, all that on it, and then keep it moving. But if it's a video, it's going to catch their eyes and stuff first. Why? Because they're going to hear the voice and see that it's moving. Because the eye is always attracted to things that is moving. So as long as you're moving, they're going to see. But I definitely encourage that if you're going to do a social media post, do something that's going to impact your peers. Do something that's going to impact not only your peers, but your family. Because this decision also affects your family. Because family is a big thing, but do something that impacts one another.
So, when you talk about Generation Z and the power of social media, the first thing I think of are trends. Gen Z, y'all love a good trend. Now, I'm a millennial. I'm a proud millennial. When it comes to voting, we don't, and I will speak for my generation, we don't need much incentives. We grew up with our parents saying we had ancestors who fought and died for your right to vote. So that enough makes us get up and go vote. But for whatever reason, Generation Z, I don't know if there's a disconnect, which is why we as HBCUs need to do more as far as our students and the community to get that fire back as far as voting for all elections. But when I think of social media, how we could use it, let's start a trend, okay? Like a TikTok, a little dance. If it's whatever it takes for students and young people to get out and vote, the little sticker that you get, you want a sticker? I got a sticker. Okay, you got to go vote to go get your sticker. I honestly was thinking about that yesterday when we went to go vote, going live, and I didn't because I ended up getting distracted. But just little things like that, taking pictures and posting it and showing people if they can see it, then for whatever reason that urges them to want to go and do it. But maybe we can get a trend started. I don't know. Whatever it takes. But the bottom line is people need to get up and they need to vote.
Did y'all see that TikTok of them?
Now, if they had a go vote on during the TikTok.
It was a lady, and she was like, "I'm going to go cancel my Trump supporting husband," and doing the whole thing. And it's like it's a trend that's going around where a bunch of white women are canceling out their husband's vote. But my whole thing is, if your husband is voting for Trump, she don't care about your rights. He don't care about your body. So that's a whole different problem. But anyway, we'll leave that to another episode. voting is just one piece of political engagement. How do we encourage people to stay engaged beyond election day, whether through activism, community organizing, or even running for office themselves?
I say for HBCU wise, like schools, newsletters. I know those are important to a lot of schools because it would tell you all the information that you need to know and give you updates and feedbacks, and even like little like short 30 or 10-second videos of like, hey, continue on, you know, researching and doing what you need to do to be able to make the next generation better and also help them.
Put your creativity to the test. So after election day, on that Tuesday, once we get our results and everything, don't disperse. Don't. Also, for people who are leading organizations that are doing like voting efforts and registration efforts, don't let those internships and fellowships die out after election day. Empower people to be creative by saying, what is it that you want to do next? Community service, resources. Like once we see what has been voted in, okay, who is this going to affect in a negative manner? What kind of resources do they need? Who is this going to affect? Who is this going to affect positively? What do we do to spread the word and help people understand, how that's going to work now? I think a lot of times we get so creative the 60, the 90 days leading up to a vote that we forget, like, oh, the 60 to 90 days post-election day are equally as important. So all of the Gen Z and young millennials who are working on campaigns, who are at the White House, who are on Capitol Hill, how are you going to use your knowledge, power, your vicinity to politics, and your influence to be creative and get people to care about things 365? We have a responsibility to do that, and especially HBCUs, because this election cycle has been, we've seen the critiques. We've seen the black schools, and they're just doing this because of this, and they're just doing this because of that. Let's show the people what we really know how to do. And when people were sitting at lunch counters and when people were getting sprayed with hoses and leading marches and walking miles to get to school, that's who we are as a core. Let's get back to that and show them that not only do we have the creativity and the momentum, but we have enough knowledge and we have enough understanding to know that the next 4 years is just going to be a result of what we voted for now. But then the 4 years after that, we're leading into a new generation. So what are we going to do to make sure the next 8 we're good?
I will say, because honestly, you did just hit it on the nail, like right there. But when it comes to these next 4 years, you're right. Everyone wants to criticize. Like, that's all they want to do about, oh, well, why are we just so happy about this one black woman? Where's all the black people? We need to stop glorifying just one black person. It needs to be a room full of us. It needs to be a line. We need to be already thinking, okay, who's running for the next election? Who's going to be being in these positions in order to make sure that we continue to create our legacies? We don't talk enough about how, like you just said, HBCUs always was on the forefront of the civil rights era, of any movement, the Black Lives Matter movement, George Floyd era. Like, that was like HBCU students. I will say, I believe we're not mad enough no more. We don't, that fire that we have, like, we don't have that anymore, and we need to bring it back. Remember our reason why. We can't just sit there and it seems like they throw a bone at us and then we just sit there and say, okay, that's good enough. It's not. We know what we're worth. We built this country. We built it. And then we hear this hate rhetoric just be spread across the country and being told that, oh, we're only good to entertain and to perform, and it's like everyone wants to be us until it's time to be us. And it's like when we start to understand that we got to start standing up a little bit more and a little bit faster than what we do. How many people got to die before we stand up? How many ballots got to be burned before we stand up? How many times do we have to hear misinformation and disinformation spread before we say enough is enough? Let's continue to stand with each other. I ask people, what are we going to do after November 6th? Election's over. It's all said and done. Do we go back? Do we just go pretend that we didn't just see everybody's true colors and we didn't just see where people really stood? Because that's another thing social media did. It helped us really see what a lot of people really stood. I mean, me being a teacher in a predominantly black school, and I mean, I don't care who watching this, I got a teacher right now that is on Facebook every night talking about Trump this and Trump that, and oh yeah, let's get rid of this and let's get rid of that. You want to get rid of the Department of Education and you work at a public school? So you don't care about the same kids that you come try to teach every day. How do we go back and pretend that none of this happened after November 5th? We just cannot. So what do we do next? What is our next? And that was even one of the questions. But now I got to ask, what's next? How do we move from here?
That right there by itself. Let's go back. Right, that by itself is a sermon. What's next is the sermon itself. Because what you think about, and I've been thinking about this for a while, for about a couple of weeks. Right now, we're not in a battle. We have passed the battle stage. We are in a war. And this war is not just a physical war. It's an emotional war. It's a mental. And now it's starting to affect how people are supposed to move. In other words, when you think about what's next, because really everybody's just waiting for November 5th to be over so we can all breathe. That's what we're waiting on. Everybody just want to sit there and just, that's it. But now, like you say, you got to think about what is next. What is going to happen to my daughter? What is going to happen to my son? Am I still going to be living in the same world that I was living in 4 years ago? Or am I going to change that? And it's funny because I'm going to quote this song, hymn, that really just popped in my head. Thank you, sir. When you think about it, because he lives, I can face tomorrow. Because he lives, all my fear is gone, and I know who my future, and this is for all my believers who know this. When you think about just that, the chorus itself, we all know who did what for us. We know it. So now you have to think about it worldly. What steps can I take? Even as parents, they may ask, what steps can I take for my child? And as an HBCU student, you see the movements. Because we are the movements. And people forget that the movement started with us. The movements had started because people had saw the dream. Martin Luther King said, I have a dream. And he went forth into what that dream is. He walked for that dream. Him and Sarah Rose Parks sat for that dream. Because they knew that the world that they was living in, they didn't want it to be the same world for their next generations. And that is what we're missing. So what's next is, how can we continue, number one, to stay strong? Number two, how can we continue to stand on what we believe in? And number three, how can we keep fighting for the necessary things that can keep us going until the next day? Because we're missing, like you say, we're missing that flame, because that flame is just slowly turning off, and that gas bill is not going to be paid, so everything just dying out. It's just going to sit there. But now we really got to think about what is going to happen next within the next 6 months. Because a lot can happen within a year, but what's going to happen within the next 6 months after the voting is done? So when you think about moving, and then I'm going to stop talking. When you think about the next, your next should be, what can I do next to help improve for the next?
While you were speaking, Stephen, it kind of called me back to human resource management, and we were analyzing the population of different cultures and ethnic groups over the next 20 years. and African Americans will stay pretty much flatline, steady, and there's no growth in our population. A decline of Caucasians, and then increase on Hispanic, Asian Americans as well. So what that means is that there will be less people to tell our story, and less people to really live in what we have gone through and what we're facing, and less people to really voice the opinion of what it is that we truly resonate with. And right now is pivotal, because if we know that our trajectory is to just flatline, we need to be telling people this is the reason to fight. I hate to pull to this, but slavery, same thing to those Jews, just things like that. You have to really find people that you can resonate in the right reasons to vote. And then when it boils down to something that's just unethical, factoring out what deems people human, what rights they have, when you can have an abortion, what states allow it. When it just boils down to stuff like that, and you're not allowed to live on what the principles were really, which is freedom of speech, Bill of Rights, things like that. When you're excluded, which we were for a very long time, and now we've mustered up the strength to gain these rights. We've included women, the ability to vote, and when you try to snatch these things away from us and go backward, it's like, what are we really doing? And like Ms. Shakoya said earlier, like, we have to really stay together. Those same groups that we've already rallied, we need to continue to push those groups, whatever the outcome, because these are the same people we're going to take to vote on these local government levels, to make sure that we're implementing the right people, so that, okay, the head of the body might not be okay, but when we can sever off these other parts and there's only a head left, we can still function as a smaller group. And I think if we look at it like that, it's all going to be okay.
You want to go, Jess?
Sure, yeah, I don't want to follow you.
you.
Back to the question is, what's next? I feel like we need to plan for the best and also plan for the worst. However way you decide to vote, we need to hold people accountable, or we need to prepare for a plan of action to protest and to figure out, okay, if this is what happens, if this person gets elected, how is this going to affect us? How is it going to affect our communities? How is it going to affect our family? And what do we plan to do to prevent these things from happening? So I feel like the rallying together and strategizing needs to happen now. If it's not already happening, I hope it is. Just in case, having a plan B, a plan C, like worst case scenario, what are we going to do? And if it's the best case scenario, then great. Now let's hold these leaders accountable. Everything that you said that you were going to do for our community, for HBCU students, etc., let's hold you accountable to make sure that it gets done, and we do have the right person in office to make sure that we are moving forward.
I was going to add that find a grassroots organization and stick to supporting them. Find a nonprofit and stick to supporting them. But even as we all sit here and speak on this panel and have this discussion, we are all members of Divine Nine organizations who have national programs and partnerships and different organizations and causes that we advocate for. If you are, even if you're not a member of a Divine Nine organization, if you are a student, if you are someone who has a job, if you are someone who has children, if you are married, you have parents, you have brothers, you have sisters, cousins, whatever, find a cause and work towards making that cause more widely known. Work towards gathering people to come on and assist you in advocating for that group of people, or that particular disease, or that particular resource. Find an organization that can continue to feed into you and motivate you and encourage you to care about something post-election. Because like you're saying, Miss JCSU, like you're saying, Miss JCSU, you have to have a plan. Regardless of what the outcome is going to be, tomorrow is still going to come. So no matter who wins, you need to have a plan to advocate for something. And I tell my students all the time, if you don't care about the things that you see in the popular media, whatever is important to you, whatever you care, whatever angers you, whatever gets your blood boiling, find a cause and work towards that. And there's no right or wrong answer, because regardless of who you vote for, you should be advocating for something. And if you can't find something to advocate for, and if the person that you are looking to vote for does not have anything attached to them that you can advocate for, then you need to rethink.
I'm gonna add one more thing, because they actually tipped in. It came back to my memory. What's next? Moving into the strategic year. Moving into the strategic year, meaning what can we plan now so when it starts, we know how to keep going? Because a lot of us get into situations or get into positions, since we're talking about voting, into positions or get into these places and we don't have no plan. We going in there like a deer caught in headlights. Don't know what we reading, don't know what we writing, don't know what we giving a speech about. But when you come in with a plan, then you know how to get to that next destination. And then from there, you can just keep going. So we have to move with a strategic plan.
He said move with a plan, not just concepts of a plan, okay? Come on now. I will say, I mean, y'all, I don't even want to ask the other questions because, I mean, y'all really just answered them because all of them was really to sum up how can we continue to create this legacy and keep it moving? And what y'all said was valid. We got to keep moving beyond the election. We got to continue to keep joining these programs. This shouldn't be the only time that the NAACP should see y'all. This shouldn't be the only time that when we all vote, see y'all. Okay? Okay? Because at the end of the day, y'all know that next November is another election somewhere. And the November after that is another election. And some people running for governors and mayoral elections is coming up. City council elections is coming up. So it ain't time to just say, okay, we figured out who president is. All right, going back to my little hole. Because when we see the younger generation, and especially in our culture, I am seeing so many people that has been involved in politics that have never been before. But we can't let them lose the attention. We can't let them lose the focus because people say, oh, politics don't affect me, but politics affect everybody. It's the way of life. Someone is making a determination and a decision about how you are allowed to live your life. Are you going to live it free? Or are you going to live it being ran by a dictator that is going to say that we get to determine what happens to a woman's body? Or are we going to go and choose freedom? Are we going to take away from our HBCUs? Or are we going to continue to cultivate and make the next future leaders? It is so many things that is at stake right now in this election. I also want to take this time to say, look at the back of your ballot. The ballot is not one page. Flip that ballot over because it is a nonpartisan section that is on your ballot. And you need to make sure that you know the judges that you are voting for, because we talk about the mass incarceration rate, but that goes with judges because they are the ones who make the decision on how long a person is in jail. They get to make the determination on if you are on probation or if you are spending the rest of your life behind bars. So it's important that you know that nonpartisan section of your ballot. The same with the school board members. We talk about, education. It starts young. I was sitting with the one of the admin from POC, which is Pencil Lewis College School of Business and Design in Detroit, Michigan, the only HBCU there. And he said something that really stuck with me. And he said, the problem is everything else have a filler program. When you play sports, you go from little league to college to high school, then to college, to you making it an occupation. Education is the only thing that we're not actually trying to build and make sure that we're getting stronger and stronger. Look at y'all school board, people that's running for school board. What is the type of policies are they making to actually help the people that look like us? Third and fourth grade reading scores is how they decide how many jails they gonna open. Third and fourth grade reading scores. That's why I went to go teach third and fourth grade. Because y'all wasn't about to make a reading score based off of my baby's reading scores. I'm sorry. Because everybody can read in my class. And it's important that we continue to elect those who are going to care about our children. Not just say that school shootings is something we just got to get used to. We need to understand that there is a problem and we need some gun control. And there is a need for legislation on gun control. But I'm going to get off my soapbox because I'd be here all day.
No, it's funny that you said that because I was going to add that voting down ballot is very important. There are so many people that feel like, okay, I just need to vote for the president and that's it. No, like those superintendents, governors, sheriffs of your county, those are the individuals that will affect your everyday life. You get pulled over depending on who is in the sheriff office, depending on things of that nature can affect whether you go home or whether you get locked up, so you have to pay attention to those judges, senators, governors. It's very important. It's key. And I'm so happy that you touched on that and that nonpartisan. Please get a voter's guide and read it through. You are allowed to take, back to voters' rights, you are allowed to take your voter's guide in there with you, and you can take, there is no time limit. You can take your time and read the information before you cast your vote. So please vote down ballot and make sure that you are paying attention to every category, not just the presidential one.
As we get ready to close, I just want to say, does anyone have anything to say for someone who's going into that ballot, going into that poll or the precinct, and they're getting their ballot in their hand for the first time ever? And they know that this is going to be one of the biggest decisions that they're going to make. What is some advice that you can tell to them? Come on, first-time voter. How you feeling?
I definitely feel good, obviously, but I just want to say that for somebody that's going to vote for the first time, I just want to say that I'm definitely proud of you, and I'm happy that you're able to step up and go vote, because I know for me it was hard, and for many others actually it was hard. So I definitely want to say I'm happy that you're taking that stand.
I want to say to you, like he just said, I'm proud of you. I see you. When you go there, stand on what you believe in. Stand on what you know is right. But also stand on what you know is going to come for the future. Because you're not only making a decision for yourself and for your family, but you're making a decision for the generations to come behind you. So you know what you're doing. Take your time, look over and read. It's not time, so it's not like an ELGOC, midterms, finals for all the colleges. It's not that. You got plenty of time. And even if they still try to rush you, like, look, I'm good. You do what the best thing you know what it is, and you got this.
For me, if you are a first-time voter, I want to let you know that this is your rite of passage into being a change maker for this world. So when you cast that vote, don't let that be the end. When you walk out and you have your sticker, go out into this world and let people know what you learned after reading over that ballot. And then fight for something until the next election. And not the next presidential election, but the next local election. The next election on your campus. Like, take this moment as the encouragement and the empowerment that you are. This is an opportunity for you to show that you are powerful, and this is an opportunity for you to show people that your knowledge base has gotten you to get here, cast that vote, make history, and now be a change agent for your campus community and the surrounding areas.
It's on now. I would first like to say that I'm proud of you, but remember what happened. Remember who stormed the Capitol. remember that if it was a minority that had done that, would they still be alive? One thing that my mom always told me is that I have no control over anyone else. So why would you legally try to have control over anyone else and what they do with their body and their decisions? But that's all I gotta say.
Period. King. I would just say remember your why. Remember your why. Remember why you're voting, and remember who you're voting for, and who and how it's going to affect you and the ones that you love.
Well, saying this is my last episode, I'm going to say this. I'm tired of white privilege. And I think we all should be tired of white privilege. I'm tired of the fact that we are constantly pushed in jail, treated like animals, and yet nothing's changing. We had 45 white men in office, and nothing is any different. Why can't we give this black woman a chance? Why can't we give this black woman a chance? My thing is, this man is a felon. Imagine if he was 3 shades darker. Do y'all think y'all be still letting him run for office? Do we think that he'll still have a chance? Do we think that he'll have a chance to get in the room to even think about running for president? But yet, because he is made of money and his white privilege was handed to him from the moment he was born, we are stuck with a world that is in the middle of a civil war. We are at war right now. It really feels, y'all thought Bloods and Crips was bad. This is worse. You got people screaming down the streets, Trump for president, Kamala for president, F this, F that. It is so much hate and division in this country right now. And it's one side that is trying to continue it. Let's not ignore the fact that this man switched his normal classic red tie to a black and gold tie to represent the Proud Boys, a known racist group. He has told them several times to stand by. He said, I have a secret, and I'm going to let y'all know after the election. Because he knows that if he is elected, he is going to change this democracy forever. We are at war. And until we stand up and say we're not going to take this no more, we're going to keep going through the same cycle. I'm a history teacher. I'm going to tell y'all, if we don't learn about our history, we are doomed to repeat it. We not tired? We not tired of constantly having to work twice as hard just to be seen as half of a human? Our lives matter. Our children's matter. We got to stop spreading hate. And it's up to us to change this narrative. So I charge everybody at home, here, call somebody and just have a conversation. What's your voting plan? What is your plan? When you go in there, who you voting for? And I'm talking about down the ballot. Don't just talk to me about Kamala and Trump. Talk to me about who are you voting for? What judges are you voting for? What's their record? Also, when y'all doing this research, look at candidates 10 years ago. Don't look at a candidate right now. Kamala Harris has created programs, the Back on Track program that no one wants to talk about. They hate talking about the Back on Track program, and the fact that she said we're going to actually use prison as rehabilitation as it was designed to be, rather than to just put you in jail and act like y'all are zoo animals. So she was expunging records after the completion of job certification programs. She was trying to help and she's continuing to try to help, while you have another man that continued to say the same things that was in the speech of Adolf Hitler. He is starting a war. He said that the world leaders are laughing at Kamala. No, they're laughing at him. They're laughing because they know if he gets back into office, it's going to be the destruction of one of the most powerful countries in the world. Thank you to our amazing panelists for sharing your insights tonight. It's clear that the future of democracy rests in the hands of the next generation, and HBCU students and alumni are uniquely positioned to lead the charge. From organizing on campuses to running for offices themselves, young people have the power to shape the future of our country if we give them the tools and support to do so. Vice President Kamala Harris often says that the fight for democracy is ongoing and requires each of us to stay engaged. Just as she was inspired by her time at Howard, we hope that today's HBCU students will continue to find inspiration in the legacy they are carrying forward. As we unfortunately close out this series, I want to leave you with this. The fight for democracy requires all of us to play our part. Whether you're registering voters, educating your peers, or holding elected officials accountable, your efforts matter. Together, we can ensure that our democracy is inclusive, just, and strong for generations to come. Thank you all for joining us tonight. And remember, our voices, our power, our future. I am your host, Kevin Keys III. Until next time, see you at the polls, and good night.